Okay, l'chaim l'vracha, everyone. Good evening to everyone. From what I understand, this is the last shir of the first part of the mitzvah, and it's about to be the first of the second part of the mitzvah. So I'm very excited about that, Be'ezus Hashem. Bachrim, this week's sikha is a very unique sikha. I feel a little bit strange, standing so much higher than everyone else. I wish that there would not be a stage over here. It does feel a little bit strange, but anyhow, Bashgach Pratis, we're here. This week's sikha is a very unique sikha. And the reason is because usually the Rebbe tells us that we have to open up our eyes. Opening up our eyes on a very practical level means that certain things that look at first glance galusdik, the Rebbe tells us, the Rebbe instructs us and tells us that that's the mission of our generation, to be able to look at those very things which appear galusdik in a geuladik way. Now, some siches, the Rebbe doesn't just tell us to do that, but the Rebbe actually does it for us. The Rebbe in certain siches takes certain things, presents them in their galusdik perspective that we always looked at them as, and then the Rebbe reintroduces that same galusdik thing in a geuladik perspective. And suddenly, the Rebbe opens up our eyes to see things in a geuladik way. And this sikha is one of those unique sikhas where the Rebbe does that very thing. In fact, in this sikha there's a tremendous chiddush, which from what I know, which is not so much, but also from what I heard from other mashpim, which did learn so much, it's a chiddush that is never seen before, which the Rebbe is mechadish in this sikha, to the point, I did not say the chiddush yet, we'll say it throughout the sikha, but this chiddush is so grand to the point that many mashpim consider this to be one of those things of terosei shel moshiach. Torah Chadasha Meiti Teitze. It says when Mashiach comes, a new part of the Torah will be revealed. And many Mashpim consider this Sikha to be one of those Chidushim that could only come from Melech HaMashiach himself, as we will see throughout this Sikha. So we have to recognize that Ashreinu V'Chalkeinu, we're not stop learning another Vart. We're learning over here real nevuos from the Rebbe, mamish an unbelievable scale. What's unique, we're starting the Sikha. What's unique about this Shabbos is that this Shabbos is Shabbos Chazak. We finish Sefer Bereshis. Sefer Bereshis is otherwise known as Sefer Yashar. The reason why it's called Sefer Yashar is because it discusses the life of those people which were Yasharim, referring to the Aves, of course. So we say Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek. What is the idea of Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek? And the answer is that next week, Parsha Shmois, the Yidden are already going down to Galus Mitzrayim. So before Yidden go down to Galus, they need to be empowered. They need to be strengthened. So we say Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek. So we should have, which Chazak obviously literally means strength. We should have strength. We say Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek. So that way when we go down to Galus, we should have the strength to be able to be successful in our Avodah throughout the Galus. We actually see this mamish in the Teichen of the Parsha. What's the Parsha all about? The Yakov Avinu is giving the children, giving the Shvatim, plus Menachem and Ephraim, which now become part of the Shvatim, brachos. The idea of these brachos is this very topic, to give the Shvatim the empowerment, the ability, the brachos, to be able to be successful in their Avodah, the Shluchos, even while they're in Galus Mitzrayim. So come on the stage, don't worry, come on the stage, it's good. We all feel uncomfortable when we're on here anyways, it's good. So the Nekuda is, again, what's the idea of the brachos? The idea of the brachos is the whole Nekuda of Shabbos Chazak, an asinas koyach, an empowerment to the Shvatim on their journey down to Mitzrayim. This is all very much connected to Yakov Avinu. Yakov Leimes. Why? Because Yaakov Avinu, being that he never died, so now we understand that if Yaakov is the one giving the Yidden, the koyach, the brachos, right, to be able to be matzliach, to be able to be successful, to be able to be strong, chazak, v'nis chazek, in Galus Mitzrayim, but he never passed away. What that means to us is that he's still over here giving us brachos every single Shabbos Chazak, every single year. When we read Parshas Vayechi and we say Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek, we know that Yakov Avinu lo meis, and therefore Yakov is still giving us the brachos the same way he gave it the first time, to give us the strength to be able to be successful in Galus Mitzrayim, referring to the fact that we are still in Galus Mitzrayim, going into the geula, the strength to be able to go to the geula Amitis V'Shlema. So why is Yaakov Avinu lo meis significant, at least in this context? The answer is because that means to us that he's still giving us the brachos and the chazak to be able to be successful in our avodah and Galus. The Rebbe wants to connect all this to asara beteves. I would categorize all the above as more of a akdama. Now the sikha is starting to, we always say, every week in the shir, we always say that every sikha has its own nekuda, Now we're starting to scrape upon the nekuda. We're still a few steps away from the nekuda itself, but we're going to start building up towards the nekuda. This is all very much connected to asara beteves. Asara beteves is a very unique fast. We know that there are 4 fasts midirabanan: asara beteves, Shivasa B'Tammuz, Tisha B'Av, and Tzim Dalia. Tiny Esther, we're not addressing. The point is, although all 4 of these fasts are all based on a sequence of events, and therefore they all basically have the same level of strictness, with the exclusion of Tisha B'Av being the strictest one, because we start fasting the night before, and we don't wear shoes, and all the other inyanim, right? For us, Chassidim Tisha B'Av is very significant, because we can't even go to mikvah, so that's a very big nafka mina between Tisha B'Av and Asara beteves. But nevertheless, we find a tremendous strictness that asara beteves has over the other 3 fasts, which are midirabanan, midiv seifrim. What's the strictness that asara beteves has that the other fasts don't have? If asara beteves were to fall out to be on Shabbos, which now these days that we basically manipulate the calendar, we make sure it shouldn't fall out to be on Shabbos. But while there are mekadash al pi ha're'iyah, which still lasted quite a few years even after the Churban, and especially during beis sheni, while there were mekadash al pi ha're'iyah, which means while Din were determined when Rosh Chodesh is based on when the moon actually came up in the sky, unlike these days where we determine when Rosh Chodesh is based on a calendar that we choose. So again, during the time when Din was mekadash al pi ha're'iyah, and it was possible for asara beteves to fall to be on Shabbos, the halacha would be that we fast on Shabbos. Which is, anyone that understands a little bit of halacha, which of course is everybody in this room, it's a tremendous chiddush. Just to put things into perspective, Tisha B'Av is so much more strict in many other elements than asara beteves. Like we mentioned, we don't wear shoes, we start fasting from the night before, and so on and so forth. And nevertheless, if Tisha B'Av falls out to be on Shabbos, do we fast or we push off the fast? We push it off, right? Like we have for the past few years, right? But asara beteves, we would fast on Shabbos, just like Yom Kippur, which is a tremendous, tremendous chiddush. And we obviously want to understand why. Now the answer seemingly is very simple. The reason is because it was the beginning of everything. Everything goes after the beginning. To put it in very simple words, as long as you're living a normal life, you're living a normal life. Once it gets into war mode, you are in war mode. Things could get worse, things could get even more worse than that, but life is not normal anymore. The day where the war began, that was the day that had the biggest shift. Once people were already in war mode, things got worse and worse, from being a siege around the city, from being broken into the walls, from the beis being destroyed, from Gedalia, the leader of the generation being killed. All these things were just stages in the war. But the actual fact that the war began, that was the worst. And for that simple reason, asara beteves is considered to be the most strict fast, at least in this way of it pushing off Shabbos. But to go a little bit deeper, what is really a fast? We all understand, I hope, and I'm sure, that the Rebbe is building up by explaining the simple pshat. The Rebbe is just building up in order to give us a much deeper perspective. Yeah, so stay tuned. What's really a fast day? A fast day really ultimately is a eis ratzon. It's a special time when Hashem is quote unquote listening extra carefully to all of our tefillos. And that's in fact why we don't eat. The reason why we don't eat, at least on a deeper level, is because we don't want to distract ourselves with physical matters such as food, because it's such a beautiful Eis Ratzin. It's such a beautiful time. It's such an opportune time to daven to Hashem for whatever we want, that we don't want to distract ourselves by eating food. So us not eating food is actually such a beautiful thing. It's like Demin Malachim. We're becoming like Malachim, which are so uninterested in Elam Hazeh Gashmi because we want to cash in every moment of this Eis Ratzin. Right? Now, all this being said, says the Rebbe, we see this idea reflected very much in asara beteves. Asara beteves, nothing actually happened. In other words, nobody actually got killed. Nothing was actually broken. No walls were actually burst into. So what happened in asara beteves? The answer is there was just a siege around the walls. That's a terrible thing. That's why we also fast. But at the same time, no damage actually took place. In other words, asara beteves is what? Asara beteves is just the Eibishter waking us up to do tshuva. Asara beteves is the Eibishter telling us, guys, I'm surrounding the walls, and I'm letting you know, if you don't do tshuva, terrible things are going to happen. Chas v'shalom. So in other words, the whole idea of a fast day, which is that a fast day is a special Eis Ratzin, a special opportune time for Hashem to really listen to our tefillos, is reflected specifically in asara beteves. Why? Because in asara beteves, nothing actually happened other than waking us up to do tshuva. And that's really, in essence, the idea of every fast day, to wake us up to do tshuva. Just that in asara beteves, it happened in an extreme way, that nothing bad actually happened. It was just to wake us up to do tshuva. While in every other fast day, something bad did happen. It's just that we also have to remember that we have to wake up to do tshuva. So in asara beteves, we see a reflection of the whole idea of a fast day. Now, Bachrim, we could really start going into the core idea of the Sikha. Like I said, that was more of a touching the surface of the Nekuda. Now we're going to go into the actual Nekuda of the Sikha. And that is the idea of Barzel. The idea of metal. The idea of metal is a very, very negative thing. Metal is a very, very Galus thing. To the point that we're actually not allowed to have metal as a part of the structure of the beis hamikdash. To say it in even more extreme words, we're not even allowed to use metal to build the beis hamikdash. So if you had a stone in the beis hamikdash that had to be a little bit shaved, a little bit cut, you're not allowed to do it, at least not in the beis hamikdash premises, with a metal knife. And the reason is because metal was created to shorten a person's life. In other words, it's a weapon that could kill a person. And therefore, metal is considered to be something which is klipadik. And to the extreme that it can't even be elevated, quote unquote, by using it in the beis hamikdash. And therefore, al pi halacha, we're not allowed to use metal in the beis hamikdash. To say it in even more Kabbalistic words, Barzel is Rashi teves, Bila, Rachel, Zilpa, and Leah, which is the four wives of Yakov. But if you notice the order, first comes the Shifcha, and then comes Gvirta. First comes the maidservant, and then comes the master. First Bilha, and then Rachel. First Zilpa, and then Leah. Which is exactly how Klipa operates. In Klipa, we take the lowest things, and we consider them to be the highest. We take the most grubby things, and they become the most valuable. That's why Barzel, which represents the whole idea of Klipa, first comes Bila, the Shifcha, and then comes Rachel. First comes Zilpa, and then comes Leah. Because in Klipa, everything's fakir. The lowest things comes first. The more grubby things take more priority. But now comes the Rebbe and says, 1 second. Let's understand for a moment what Barzel really is. And this is where the Nekuda, this is where the Chiddush, not really the Nekuda yet, but the Chiddush of the Sikha begins over here, and it's followed with the Nekuda of the Sikha. Says the Rebbe, what's really Barzel? In other words, let's understand what Barzel would represent in Kedusha And maybe we could elevate the whole idea of Barzel. Barzel in Kedusha, or even on a simple level, Barzel means strength. Strength means something which doesn't change, meaning it's so strong that nothing could change it. So what's the avodah of Barzel in Kedusha? The avodah of Barzel in Kedusha is to live on such a level, or to be connected to such a level, which is so strong that it can't change. Now, Rabbi, what's the only thing which is so strong that it could never change? The obvious answer is the Eibishter. Because anything which is created by the Eibishter could definitely change, because the Eibishter is its creator. So the Eibishter could decide to change it. The one thing which, quote unquote, doesn't have a creator, the one thing which it's impossible for it to change, in other words, it's the strongest thing, is the Eibishter himself. Or the Neshama of a Yid, which is a part of the Eibishter himself. So the avodah of Barzel the Kedusha, the avodah of connecting to a level which is so strong, which metal represents the idea of strength, but strength to the extreme that could never change, is the avodah of a Yid connecting, or in other words, a Yid revealing, or at least a Yid experiencing his etzem and neshama, which is a part of Hashem which could never change. In other words, each one of us within ourselves have an element of Barzel. The element of Barzel, metal, the element of Barzel within us is the etzem and neshama, which is the idea of something so strong within me that could never change, no matter what circumstance I find myself in. In fact, the fact that Barzel fell so low into Klipa that it cannot even be used in the beis hamikdash is only because it's rooted in such a deep level in the Eibishter. That's the only reason why it fell so low. As the rule is, the highest falls the lowest. And therefore, Barzel, which during Galus is so low they can't even be elevated, when Mashiach comes, is going to be not just elevated. We're going to reveal that the deepest source, that the real source of Barzel is the deepest level of Eibishter, not the highest level of Giluim, but rather the Eibishter himself. And therefore now we can understand how Barzel operates. Our Barzel is so low, but yet it comes from the deepest level of Eibishter, meaning that the fact that it's so low is only because it's coming to reveal the deepest level of Hashem. That's why first comes Bilha and then Rachel. First comes Zilpah and then Leah. Because it's about taking the lowest thing like Bilha and revealing that really Bilha is even higher than Rachel. It's about taking the lowest thing, meaning Zilpah, the Shifcha, and then revealing that Zilpah is even higher than Leah. Meaning taking Olam Hazeh Gashmi and showing how Gashmius has a mile over Ruchnius. Taking the Neshama, the goof of a Yid, showing that a goof of a Yid has a mile over the Ruchnius. As we know that when Mashiach comes, HaNeshama Nizenis Min HaGuf. When Mashiach comes, the Neshama will be getting life from the body. Meaning we're going to reveal that the body is even higher than the Neshama. And we're going to reveal that the physical world, meaning this over here, is much greater, much more a part of Hashem, and much more coming from Atmos Umahos than Elam Atzilus does. Because Elam Atzilus is only Giluyim, while Gashmius can only come from Atmos Umahos. So we understand that the whole idea of Barzel is to take the lowest thing and to reveal, oh, this is the lowest? Oh, that means that it's even higher than the higher things. It comes from a much deeper source. That's why it fell so low. Now, obviously, I must mention that this is a very broad sugya in Chassidus, and if you don't understand it, you should definitely go over to your mashpim, or come over to me later on, and we could bring about this more at length. I'm not coming to give a shir about this topic. We're giving a shir about Barzel, but not about that topic. So, if you don't understand this concept of the lowest comes from the highest, and the highest goes to the lowest, it's actually coming up in Basilagani, Ois Dalad, and Ois Hey over there, where the Rebbe goes through how Elam Hazeh Gashmi comes is higher than Atzilus and so on and so forth. That's only Yeridim Parnavis Barach, so you're going to be soon to Basilagani Tashrid Aleph. But nevertheless, make sure to get full clarity in the topic. I'm not going through it now. Don't think that I went through the whole explanation now. I'm just referencing to the idea. And short, one more time, that's why we find that Bilha comes before Rachel, Zilpah comes before Leah, because it's fakir. Barzel is about showing that the lowest thing, the Gashmius, the Guf, it actually comes from a much deeper source than the Neshama, the Ruchnius, the Imais, and so on and so forth. Based on this, the Rebbe makes a Meridik Chiddush. And this is the Chiddush which I was referring to in the beginning when I was giving the introduction. Says the Rebbe, this is the Chiddush which I was saying that from what I know and from what I heard other Mashpim say, this is the Chiddush that was never We never heard such a thing, not in Nigla and Chassidus. Based on all this, as the Rebbe, when Mashiach comes in the third beis hamikdash, Barzel will be part of the beis hamikdash. Today, al pi halacha, we're not even allowed to fix a stone with Barzel. When Mashiach comes, not just will Barzel be elevated, but Barzel will be part of the structure of the actual beis hamikdash. Why? Because we're going to reveal the source of Barzel. Now, based on this, this was the chiddush of the Sikha. Now I want to move on to the nekuda of the Sikha. The nekuda of the Sikha is like this. I'm not referring to the last question on the sheet. We're still in the middle of the build-up. Yechezkel gets a sign from Hashem, and the sign is that when you're gonna have the vision, when you're gonna have a nevuah of a metal pot banging on a metal wall, you're gonna know that Galus is about to begin. Now, bepashtos, what's the reason why seeing a metal pot banging on a metal wall? Why does that represent Galus? So al pi pshat, al pi nigler, makes perfect sense. What do you mean? Why are you not allowed to use metal in the beis hamikdash? Because it's here to kill, right? And we said that something which is here to kill can be used in the beis hamikdash. So it makes perfect sense. Metal, which represents the idea of galus, of death, of killing, to the point that it can't even be used in the beis hamikdash. One metal pot banging a metal wall represents the whole idea of galus, the whole idea of killing, the whole idea of the opposite of life. That's al pi pshat. But says the Rebbe, based on all of the above, really it's much deeper. How? And now this is the nekud hezachayim. Metal, in truth, represents the deepest levels of Hashem, or in other words, the deepest level of a yid being revealed, as we mentioned above, right? The metal is the idea of strength which can be changed, which is only true regarding the Eibishter or neshama yid. That's the only real thing that can be changed. That's only real metal. Based on that, says the Rebbe, when the Eibishter tells Yechezkel that the Yidden are going to go down to Galus, at the same moment the Eibishter is telling Yechezkel, but you should know that while the Yidden are in Galus, they're going to be able to tap into a nekuda of Mashiach within themselves. They're going to be able to experience a nekuda of geula in their Aveda while they're in Galus. In fact, even before they go down to Galus, as the Eibishter is giving Yechezkel a sign that Galus is about to begin, right there and then, the Eibishter is giving Yechezkel the tools in Galus, meaning before they even go down to Galus. The Eibishter is already giving Yechezkel the tools how in Galus they could live in a moshiach way. How? By connecting to the metal within them. Which, like we explained at length, metal means a yid connecting or revealing or at least experiencing his etzem neshama. So once again, why is the sign that the Eibishter gives Yechezkel that Galus is about to begin? Why is that sign a metal pot banging on a metal wall? The answer is not just because metal is here to kill, so metal banging on metal represents the idea of Galus. Rather, pshat is in a much deeper level that the Eibishter is reminding and giving the Yidden the tools, how even when you're going to go through Galus and Churban beis hamikdash and millions of Yidden are going to be murdered, Rahman litzlan, lo yisakum ba'amayim tzara, nevertheless, you're going to be able to live in a geula mode through tapping into the barzel within you. Based on all of this, says the Rebbe, this is really the whole idea of Yakov lei meis. Yakov lei meis, meaning why is Yakov the best person to give the brachos of chazak when he's chazek before they didn't go to Galus? Because what does it mean the Yakov lei meis, based on the Sikha? It means he never died. What does it mean he never died? He never had a change. He never changed. He always stayed the same. Meaning, even his physical body was living on this level of barzel that is usually referring to the etzem neshama. Meaning, his etzem neshama was so revealed in his body was so in tune with the etzem neshama, to the point that even his etzem neshama, even his goof, even his physical goof, never experienced a change. Never died, never rotten. If you go right out to Yakov Avinu's caver, and you're a kohen, and you put your hand over the caver, you're not tamei tumas oil, because his body's not dead, al pi halacha. So in other words, his body experiences
in these very moments, as we're speaking, this darga of Barzel that we're talking about, that the Etzem and Neshama experiences. So Yaakov Avinu is the most moshiach Yid. Why? Because even his physical goof is living on that mode of geula, on that mode of Barzel penetrating his goof. That's why Yaakov Avinu is the best person to give the brachos to the Yidden before they go down to Galus Mitzrayim. Yidden are about to go down to Galus Mitzrayim. Parsha Shmois, next week's Parsha, this week's Mincha, we're going to read about the Yidden going down to Galus Mitzrayim. Not before Parshas Vayechi comes along. Where in Parshas Vayechi, Yakov, who's Yakov? Yakov loy meis. Yakov is the perfect example of a physical person that his etzem and neshama, his barzel, penetrated his physical body. That's the kind of person we want to get brachos from. Because what kind of brachos are we looking for? We're looking for the bracha of being able to, while we are walking down into Galus, we're walking in with the geula perspective that even while we're in Galus, or specifically because we're in Galus, we could connect to the part of our neshama which is geula, which is barzel, which is true, which is real, which can't change. That's why Yakov is the best person to get this kind of brachos. This is all connected very much to asara beteves. Asara beteves, in truth, and this I believe is the final point of the sicha, meaning we'll finish the shir with this. Asara beteves, what really happened to asara beteves? Asara beteves was not just about the destruction of the first beis hamikdash. Asara beteves is primarily about the Eibishter having a vision. The Eibishter has a vision. He wants the third beis hamikdash over here. The problem is, the first beis hamikdash is here. So he has to move the first beis hamikdash. Okay, then we have to bring a second. Okay, we have to move the second. That way we get to the third. The Eibishter's vision, long-term vision, what is he really looking for? We all know, dira b'tachteinim, meaning a third beis hamikdash. The Eibishter is looking for the third beis hamikdash, but the first beis hamikdash is here. So how do you put the third beis hamikdash if the first one is here? So you have to move the first. So in other words, the day that the Eibishter started the process of moving away the first beis hamikdash, in other words, the asara beteves, where the Churban began, was really not the day where the Churban began, meaning it's not just the day where the Churban began, rather it is the day where the Eibishter started the process of building the third beis hamikdash. Asara beteves is the day where the Eibishter started building the third beis hamikdash. In other words, as we were walking into Galus, as the Eibishter is putting a siege and he's about to destroy the beis hamikdash, what does he have in mind all along? That the only reason why I'm destroying is just to move it away in order to make room for the next one. Which is the same nekuda as the pot, the metal pot of Yecheskel. That as I'm showing you a sign of Galus, I'm showing you the tools how to already start living in a geuladic way, even before you walk into Galus. Which is the whole idea of the brachos that Yakov gives the Shvatim. As you're about to walk into Galus Mitzrayim, I'm giving you the brachos, the ability to be in a level of Yaakov Leimeis, in a level that even your physical body is not experiencing Galus. So the nekuda of the sicha, we have to summarize it into one line, is the Eibishter wants the geula amitis v'ashlema to happen. As the Eibishter is placing us in Galus, at those very moments, he's also giving us the tools, not just to bring the geula, but to actually live with the geula, even in the beginning of Galus. As we're walking down to Galus, as Yaakov's children are about to go down to Mitzrayim, Yaakov is already giving over this level of Yaakov Lemes. He's already giving over this level of Barzel. As the Yidden are about to experience the Churban, they'll right away have this level of Barzel, of the pot banging on the wall, meaning this level of Etzem and Neshama being revealed, even before the Churban began. Which means, in simple words, that as the Eibush is about to destroy the first beis hamikdash, he right away reminds us, this is only in order to make room for the third. Which means as Galus begins, even as Galus begins, there's already the tools to live with the geula. Now you yourself make the math. If even in the beginning of Galus, the Eibush already gives the Yidden the tools and the ability to live with the geula, al achas kama v'kama, v'kol shekem v'kavochemer, v'ben b'nei shekol shekem v'kavochemer, towards the end of Galus, as we are in the last moments of Galus, as the Rebbe says countless times. As we are already in a stage that we see the signs of the geula happening in the world around us, how much more so do we have the tools and the ability to start already living with the geula mitzvah in our life? Let us take this into our heart.